The Education and Training Show on Stray Extra.
So we are joined once again by Sunbeams, and Kate and Shelley are here. Thank you for joining us again this evening. Tonight we're going to be tackling a subject which is very close to my heart at the moment, especially with a near 2-year-old. A lot of people band about the term terrible twos, so it'll be interesting to see if we can kind of get rid of that myth tonight. But why child behaviour? There is this certain age that young children get to, like my little boy, when it just seems to start being a daily grind with bad behaviour. So I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of an insight into it.
Well, I can. Hopefully I can. As a health visitor, we look at obviously the ranges of normal. As the managing director of Sunbeams, we obviously look at that within our setting, and we manage behaviour of children within the setting. Okay, so twos, you're correct. It's around the 2-year-old age. It is a normal stage of development. Every child is different, but we do expect to see an change in behaviour around this time. One of the main causative factors that we look at is speech and communication. If you think that's when they're learning to express themselves. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that frustration, they can't find the words, or they can't get the words out. So the only way they know how to communicate with you is by changing their behaviour. And that certainly gets your attention quite quickly. Oh, yeah. So sometimes they get the response they're not looking for, which is, obviously a negative response, but they're getting a response. So sometimes it's frustration, especially when they're learning to talk. And as well as physical frustration. They've just kind of learnt to walk, and then all of a sudden they're running, and then they're doing, everything else. And all that kind of, again, wanting to do something, but not quite having the motor skill or the speech skill or the fine motor skills, like picking something up, like doing their shoes. I remember my daughter being extremely cross with me because she couldn't tie her shoelaces at 2, and having a real frustrating time with her about it. So it's a lot of frustration. And it can be actually their style of learning. And I'm going to hand over to Shelley in a moment, and she's going to talk to you about schematic learning, which some parents may have heard of, and some parents, this will be new. But it's quite an interesting area. And again, that can appear to be naughty behaviour, which actually can be quite normal. So
I know, having just spoken to you before we've come on air, that there's certain bits of behaviour which you're going to mention in a minute where I'm just going to go, no, it does that, no, it does this. So what is this that you're going to tell us about? What's the kind of brief overview of it?
So schemas, they are patterns of repeated behaviour that you may see in your child, but you might not realise what they are. They might look to you as bad behaviours and unwanted behaviours, but actually it's just the way that the child learns. So we had the discussion earlier, which things such as children love to throw things, drop things off the high chairs, that kind of thing. And that could be called a trajectory schema. And it's just where the child will repeatedly drop things, or it's just their way of learning. And if your child does exhibit something like this, what's great is to just transfer it so that it's making it safe for the child to do that. So things like giving them beanbags, they're nice and soft, they can throw them, and make it into a game, get them to throw it into a bucket, do some counting with them while you're throwing them into there. And to you it could seem like they're always constantly throwing the cup off the high chair, and you're constantly picking it up, and you're telling them no. And again, give them a beanbag to drop off the high chair, that way they're not making any mess, the sound's different for them. It's just a different way for them to express their schematic learning without them, in your eyes it's being naughty, to them it's their way of learning.
I know, if kind of from a parent's point of view, if you said maybe to my wife, if you give him a beanbag and he'll drop it, does that mean that he's going to continue to drop his drink cup and then his fork, or will it kind of help him just to think, right, that's my playtime and now I'll continue drinking? And do you know what I mean? Will this behaviour kind of drop and disappear, or?
Yeah, you'll sort of change that. It's giving them a situation where they can
do it.
They're allowed to drop a beanbag, and mum is going to join in, and it's fun then because my mum's joining in and she's clapping when I drop it, but she doesn't clap when I drop my fork. So then the understanding for the child is like, oh well, I can drop my beanbag and my mum likes that and I'm making my mummy happy. So the child will get to know then what's acceptable and what's not. And especially when you're out and about, and other things in a trajectory schema is children like to pour. So when they're out in a restaurant and they're pouring the drink on a table, it's not socially acceptable. But at home in the bath, it's really fun. And again, the parent's face will give that away, because parent can clap and reward the child for that behaviour. Whereas in the restaurant, you don't really want the child to exhibit them behaviours. So it's just giving the child the chance to exhibit their schema, but in a safe and uncontrolled environment.
It's really interesting because it could be seen as to most parents as a bad thing that they're doing this. So as of speaking to you, my little boy, he throws a ball. He's admittedly, we started to go out in the garden now the weather's nicer, so we can do it more, and he's loving it. So to know that that's not a naughty kind of behaviour.
No, far from
really
it. Far from it. It's actually learning quite a lot there, physical development and skills there. But the other thing research has shown as well is that if you interfere too much with that learning, it's going to inhibit the child's learning. So developing, and at Sunbeams we do lots of evenings with parents talking about how we can help develop those schemes and telling them what they can try and how they can use different things. It's difficult to explain it all just in one show. But parents that come to Sunbeams, we use schematic learning right the way through their development. And at parents' evenings and information evenings, we're explaining all that with parents about how they can help. We identify which schema we think the child is in, and then that's how they do that.
We support the parent and give them tips and things that they can use at home to help with that schema and help develop it.
But talking about we've got top 10 tips.
I've got my pad and pen ready for this, because after last night I'm ready for this. So what are the top 10 tips?
Well, for me, the first one, which I'll do the first one, is trying to identify the triggers of your child. Every child's different, every family's different, but planning your day around, if you're going to go shopping and you know that shopping is something that really, your child gets very cross and tired, try and plan it around a time when they're not going to be tired or hungry, if you can. I know it's not easy, but try and look at that and the timing of the day. And then if you can, there's no reason why your child couldn't take its own little shopping basket around and help you with the shopping and make a game of it. So top 10, the first one for me is kind of, look at the trigger. Try and find out what you think it is that usually starts the tantrum.
Okay.
The next thing is to kind of try and have a clear plan for a different range of situations. So if a tantrum does occur, focus on your plan and not the tantrum. Try and keep calm and try and keep in control. And your plan could be anything from, if you're out in the supermarket and the child starts to have a tantrum, then, there's things like distraction techniques that you could use with a child. What you've got to be, though, you've got to be consistent with everything, because otherwise then you're giving the child different messages all the time. Always be consistent.
And don't worry about people looking at you.
No,
don't. Really don't.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, all done it.
Yeah.
Don't be frightened to actually go off your plan. It's, you're bringing your child up, and you're sticking with your plan. And that's the consistency.
It is that consistency that does make a difference, because, like you say, the mixed messages can really cause confusion. And they know then they can test you or do that as well. So brilliant. So what's your next
one? Big tantrums can often develop from little tantrums. So always try, and the faster you can intervene or distract your child from that tantrum behaviour, the better. Don't avoid dealing with the child's behaviour just because you're in a social situation or somewhere that people are staring at you. Do deal with it how you would do in your consistent manner, and then you're going to then stop that tantrum developing into a full-blown nightmare, really.
What is a good way of dealing, like you said, to remain calm and get down to their level, talk to them, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's difficult because it's hard to reason with a 2-year-old that just, that they haven't got that understanding. Sometimes they want something and they want it now, and they don't realise why they can't have it now. What we do a lot at Sunbeams is you do have it where they want something and they want it now, and you do say, should we get that later? Should we get that? Why don't we get one of these now? And it's your tone of voice, it's your getting down, it's the eye contact with the child, it's that smile on your face. If they can see that you're sad and frustrated and really agitated, that's getting them much more agitated. If you've got a big smile on your face and come on, let's go and have a look over here, see what we can find on this shelf. Let's put that one back because that one's not very nice, and let's get this other one.
Making me smile, just talking to me with a smile on your face.
It's that eye contact, it's that smiling, and it's just getting down to their level, and the then they just kind of follow you along then, and it is hard because as parents we know, you know, you're in a rush around the supermarket and you're trying to grab everything, or you're in a rush to get where you're going, and the child is, come on, hurry up, come on. And we're building that anxiety in them straight away there, you know, and it is hard. We're always going to get in them situations, but just where possible, always try and be that little bit more prepared if you're going somewhere.
Remember, this is not the parent's fault. This is a normal stage of development with the child, and it usually comes from the frustration of not being able to communicate. They know what they want to communicate, they just can't get the words out, and that's usually where it starts. So, you know, if parents remember that, it's nothing they're doing wrong as parents. You know, this is a normal phase of development, and that's why they call it the terrible twos.
It's making me feel better now anyway, just as I'm heading into the second year with my little boy. So what's your next tip as well?
Stay strong.
Oh,
Stay
yes.
strong. Don't give in. If your child thinks that they can hold you to ransom, then they'll do it every time. Every single time. If they want something, then they'll exhibit them same behaviours because they got it last time. Don't give in. You've got to be really strong.
But remember to choose what you're going to give in and what you're not, because it's got to be realistic as well. You know, at the end of the day, we've all got to survive, and you know, it's pick your fights almost, because you know, if it's too rigid, then you know, again, if you think, oh, I can't do this, it's got to be something that's manageable for you as a family that you can stick to.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. And again, you know, if that child's, make it so that it's, you know, if they want a chocolate bar before they go to bed, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't have a chocolate bar. Well, I want a chocolate bar. No, you know, reason with them. Why don't you have an apple instead? Or why don't you have a glass of milk? Should we have that instead? And I'll sit with you and we'll have one together. You know, it's changing it so that they're still getting something. So they've won in their eyes because they've got something, but they've not got what you didn't want them to have. Yes,
bed.
yeah, it's not inappropriate. And the next thing is to kind of use a positive approach rather than a negative approach. Again, it's all the smiley faces that it just helps children to understand about the behaviour and how happy it makes everyone else when you're happy and when they do something right. And you know, just swapping that chocolate bar for milk has made mummy really happy, and mummy wants to sit with me now and have that glass of milk, whereas wanting that chocolate bar made mummy really sad. So it's just the positive approach is much better than having a negative approach to it.
Brilliant. And what have we got next?
I think you've said praise is the most positive.
Praise,
that's one of the tips.
Yeah.
Praise as well is the most powerful motivator there is, really. And I think another tip, rewards. But again, choose your reward. It's a good motivator. It encourages them. And often time with a parent is a good reward. That's what they want. So we'll read another book. We'll have another story. Yeah. You know, rather than food or chocolate bars or whatever. We've all done that, though. You know, we really have all done that. We've had a long, long day, but that does help. So pick your reward, and there's no problem with using rewards. And I think we've really kind of mentioned the other ones. If the behaviour's kind of keep a diary, because that will help you identify the triggers. So, you know, sometimes if the behaviour's getting really quite, you know, it's not changing, because don't forget this is a transient time and should improve. You know, it's a phase the child is going through and should naturally come out of it itself. Usually when speech develops, when the speech gets better, or they've got a little bit, you know, that it should improve.
I've noticed that with a niece who's nearly four now, so it kind of came through this kind of curve of behaviour, and now she's so well behaved and chatty. So
so it will get better. But if it's not getting better, keep a diary, and you might be able to see some triggers yourself of when it is. If it's a particular time of day, if it's when they're hungry or tired, which we've mentioned before, that will help. And the last one really is always remember to be clear in your instruction and expectation. You know, be consistent, like we said before, and stick to your guns, which is the last. So what we said through and through.
Yeah. I know one thing that I've heard of recently, and it seems to be working with Noah, is like you say about being clear, is kind of not ask a question when you say, if you're saying, can you go and put this in a certain place, rather saying, put this in this place, please, rather than asking a question, because that kind of sets them straight, they kind of know what they're doing. Is that
That's right. What normally happens with children behaviour at this age is as adults, we give lots of instructions all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll say, go and take that to the bin in the corner of the room, and when you've done that, then you come back to mummy. Well, straight away, that's a lot of instruction. So keep your instructions very simple, and only one instruction at once is a good tip, because then they can understand that. This time, as I've tried to say, it's about speech development. It's also understanding speech and understanding what you're saying to them. So if you can keep it simple, that does help. And at Sunbeams, we do work very hard on giving just one instruction at once that the children at that age can understand, and not cramming it all in to do that, then do that, and then when you've done that, do that. It's too much.
I found this really, really interesting, and it's great to know that Sunbeams have got this great practice in place to help children develop so brilliantly. So I really appreciate your time and your advice. And use it on Noah tonight.
Good luck.
Thank you very much for coming in once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Education and Training Show on Stray Extra.